Welcome back to my channel at The Movie Optimist, where I try and find the silver linings in even the worst of films. I just got done watching the remake for the Toxic Avenger starring Peter Dinklage. For those of you who don't know, the Toxic Avenger was a franchise that was created decades ago through Trauma Pictures, and Trauma Pictures was essentially a company that made straight-to-DVD, B-level horror action films that were really cheesy but gathered a very big following. Essentially, in this film, Peter Dinklage plays a guy who's taking care of his deceased girlfriend's son, and he's struggling to make ends meet because the kid is going through therapy and all this other stuff because the kid's pretty messed up after the loss of his mom, and he's struggling really bad. And one day he realizes that he has this disease that's gonna kill him in a year, so he tries to go through his company's insurance to get this experimental medicine that'll help keep him alive longer so he can keep taking care of this kid. And when the company denies helping him after 13 years of service, he goes in a fit of rage and tries to rob them. In doing so, he puts himself in the crosshairs of some really bad guys that also work for the company, and they try and kill him by dropping him in a vat of waste chemicals, hoping it'll kill him and hide all of the evidence that they were involved. However, this waste does not kill him. It turns him into the Toxic Avenger, and what that is like a more grotesque version of the Hulk. It's this guy with superhuman strength that can heal himself from gunshot wounds and run really fast and jump really high and do all these crazy things that like a superhero could do. But instead of looking cool like the Hulk, he is this horribly disformed monster that is horrifying to look at. But, you know, he saves people, so he's beloved by the town. Now, look, you've seen this story a million times. A guy that's down on his luck does something desperate to reverse the course of his life, and it winds up ending in tragedy, but that tragedy turns into something great that gives him these powers to then take care of the things that he couldn't before. It's been loosely done so often, especially the trope of this guy getting turned into this grotesque thing only to have the world accept him for who he is. I mean, look at the Hulk, look at Darkman. It's been done time after time again, and I know I just used two of the most basic versions of that, but you know what I'm saying. This story has been done 1,000 times, and this does not do anything to elevate it other than giving us really bloody, gory, violent kills. And if that's what the movie's main focus was, if it was like an hour and 15, an hour and 20 minutes, a quick pace of Peter Dinklage just going on a murdering rampage, exacting revenge on all the people that had a hand in trying to kill him, it would have been a little bit better. But this movie is almost 2 hours long because they really try and flesh it out with this thought-provoking story about a father and son and all these other complex ideas layered behind it. And I feel like the fans of these trauma films aren't looking for like multi-layered messages within these movies, and maybe you are. I don't know. I never seen the original ones, so I'm going into this with a fresh set of eyes. But I feel like the gimmick for me, the thing that was pulling me in, was the trailer showcasing just how awesome and violent the kills are. You literally see Peter Dinklage use a mop, a mutated radioactive mop, to cut a dude's jaw off, and the dude's tongue is flopping out. And that was in the trailer, and I was like, yeah, if we can get an hour and a half of that, that's great. And there are a lot of kills in the movie, but they're spread out very far between these much more dramatic moments that, for me, really grinded the movie down to a halt. And I appreciate them trying to give them a lot of depth and backstory, but I found myself getting a little bored waiting for the next big action set piece to come and like blow my mind. And when they do come, they are very entertaining. The entire cast here is a lot of fun, but I truly believe that 90% of the budget went to said cast. This movie had a $5 million budget, which is like, I don't know, $4.5 million more than any other trauma film ever, and that's because they teamed up with Lionsgate to make this movie, which is not having that great of a year. Just look at Ballerina. And I feel like they used $4.5 million of that to go to the cast. You have Jacob Tremblay, you have Elijah Wood, you have Kevin Bacon, you have Peter Dinklage, and a couple other people, and I can't imagine that they all worked for $10,000, so I would assume most of the budget went to that. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because as much as I thought the kills and the violence in this movie was fun, there was some use of CGI that I wasn't expecting in a movie like this, and the reason why I think that that's a detriment, even though it looked good, I think that that's a detriment to this because the core audience that's going to see this are the people that grew up watching the originals, and they use practical blood. Sure, it looked cheesy in the movies, but that's what made them so beloved by the diehard fans that loved it. It was that homemade type of independent film quality that it had, where it was people using real blood squibs, and it made it look like cheesy amputee arms flying off when they were getting cut off and stuff like that. And, like, you could tell it wasn't real, but it gave it a charm that you didn't get in a lot of other blockbuster movies that try to make it look as real as possible. So I was a little put off by the fact that they utilized a lot of CGI. Now, that's not to say they don't use any practical blood. There is some great moments with a lot of practical blood, but it was only about half the kills that utilized it, where the other half, the ones that were super over the top, it looked like cheesy CGI, and it kind of pulled me out of it. I wish they just went the full practical route. And they also cut a lot of corners with the kills where they wouldn't actually show the kill. They would have Peter Dinklage go up to somebody and go to pull their head off their shoulders, and instead of seeing the head actually get ripped off and watching the skin tear, he'll go to rip the head off and then it'll cut and he just throws the head. So you don't actually see the kill, you just see the before and after. And they do that quite a few times in this. And again, I just wish they went the cheesy route and made like a fake mannequin head, had some clay there, and pull it apart to reveal some fake guts they had inside or something. Like, it would have added to like the grotesqueness of it that everyone loves. And again, they just shied away from a lot of the actual punchline of the kills themselves. So that was also kind of a bummer. But overall, I did have fun with this movie. The kills were really creative. When they were using practical blood, it was really refreshing to see that, because you don't get that anymore in a lot of horror movies. They're utilizing tons and tons of CGI. I feel like the lower budget definitely lends to the character of this film. And again, I did have fun. If you're a fan of the original, I think you'll at least enjoy this, but I don't think it's going to get any new fans, especially like movie buffs that really pay attention to the art of making the movies. Clearly, this movie was made by a lot of people that aren't seasoned, because even things down to the edits, there were a lot of really weird edits where people would be in one spot and then magically just appear in another spot, and it feels like they cut things out, or they just forgot to film how a character got from point A to point B. People would literally just be on one side of the room, and then the next second they're like right there, and it was just kind of all over the place in terms of editing. I'm curious to see who the editor was of this, but it felt really sloppy, and again, that was also something that pulled me out of it. But yeah, at the end of the day, the movie set out to give me this entertaining story about a mutilated freak saving his town from this horrible company that's poisoning everybody with really grotesque, violent kills. And I got it. Although they did try to give me some depth that bored me a little bit, I'm not going to fault it for that, because it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just wasn't expecting it, and it was late, and I was tired. And again, just not expecting that in a Toxic Avenger film, if you will. I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10. It did just enough to make me at least want to buy the Blu-ray and watch it 1 or 2 more times at home. But I'm curious about what you guys think. Have you seen this movie yet? Probably not, because it only made $1 million in its opening weekend. Are you waiting to see it on streaming when it eventually comes out? Has my review swayed your opinion on whether or not you want to see it or not? Let's talk about it in the comments down below. And as always, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your night, and I'll catch you next time.